Hey guys, my name is Steve, Senthuran's Corner. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite reads of 2022 so far. So it's the middle of the year, June, and it's time for me to make a video like this, a video of me imploring you guys to read some of my favorite reads of 2022. I haven't read like loads of books this year, but that's probably because I was finishing my law degree, but I have read like some good books, and I have 6 books today to talk to you guys about. So this should be exciting. Please remember to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and also leave a comment down below what your favorite book of 2022 has been so far. But without further ado, let's get straight into the books, guys. So the first book I have to talk about today is Musa Okwanga's In the End It Was All About Love, which is a semi-autobiographical novel, and we follow the narrator who has just freshly arrived in Berlin. For the majority of the book, we are basically just in his mindset. He is black, gay, and approaching his 40th birthday, and he has like a lot of anxieties, stress, regrets, and all these things like just going on in his head. And this book was just brilliant. Like, I did read it kind of early on in the year, so maybe like around February, March, so like the kind of nitty-gritty details I don't fully remember. But I feel like with books that you really enjoy, it's more about the feeling that they give you, and you don't really forget that feeling. And I just remember reading this book and just feeling like it was so honest and so vulnerable and so open. I just couldn't help but like relate to a lot of the struggles and a lot of the thoughts and feelings of our narrator. As I said, this is like semi-autobiographical, so a lot of like Musa Okwanga's like own reality and life is kind of mixed in with what he's talking about here. Firstly, I love the way that it talks about Berlin. I have been to Berlin before, but like the way he talked about Berlin was just so immersive, and I just loved how Berlin was given like this persona of this kind of hot and cold, crazy but also very secretive place. I just love the way he like personified the city of Berlin. I feel like when you have a book that is being so just blunt and vulnerable with feelings and internal messes, you can't help but feel like so much about the book and about the narrator and find yourself within the narrator. And I think the best books really are the books where you can find pieces of yourself in the characters, and that's what really creates like the link and the bond and makes you continue reading on and makes you understand and feel. I feel like because it's talking about reality in such a frank way and talking about just like doubts and fears and regrets, like it just kind of feels like bleak in some areas. Like, I don't know, like I just really loved it because it was also colorful but it was also bleak. Like, it was just a marvelous piece of like autobiographical, semi-autobiographical fiction story, but not fiction story. Anyway, please read this book. The next book I want to talk about is Don't Cry For Me by Daniel Blake, and this is a novel told in a series of letters from a father to a son. And essentially the father, he's black, he's at the end of his life, he's dying, is trying to make amends with his son through these letters. We only see his letters. In the book, we basically explain why the father raised his child in a very specific way. We're tackling themes of toxic masculinity, heteronormativity, homophobia, gender roles, and all that stuff. I love this book so much because it was so raw and very real. I think you're going to find like a theme in a lot of the books I loved this year is that they are very honest and open with like the way they handle the human condition. It just does a very good job of dissecting and deconstructing all the different socializations that happens to a black person in America at that time, and just presenting them very like clear cut, like this is how I grew up and this is how it impacted the next generation. But we are dealing with a lot of like, you know, complex themes and issues like race, gender, sexuality, but I feel like it was done in such a refreshing way because it was coming from a point of view of a father who like just did not accept his gay son. It was just very refreshing to see how this individual can become so kind of toxic to a son that he loved so much. And there's a lot of extremes in the book. Like the father was dealing with a lot of like extremes of hate and love for his son. We're also dealing with the relationship between the father and the mother, and that how their marriage like broke down. It was very intense, and we kind of see the rise of the second wave like feminism that was happening in America. It was just, there's a lot of different things going on in this book. I'd say the really like just golden piece of this book is just that deconstruction of toxic masculinity, and the way it can just completely destroy all the warmth and soul of a person because you are just performing to these toxic gender roles. So the next book I have to talk to you guys about today is Vagabonds by eloghosa osunde, and this is a 2022 release, and it's magical realism, and it's set in Lagos, Nigeria, and this was such a wild, phenomenal read. I did a whole video about why you should read Vagabonds last month, so please check that out. It'll be here and down below. So in this book we are following the vagabonds of Lagos, Nigeria, and they have kind of been defined as people who are queer, people who defy gender binaries, sexual binaries, whatever, and we're just following their lives and how the city of Lagos makes it so hard for them to survive. And the city of Lagos has been personified as well. This book is through a series of kind of like short stories that come together at the end. It's like it's stories within stories or stuff like that. But I really love the way how Sunday tackled the themes of like corruption, exploitation, oppression through the lens of like magical stuff and fantasy, and how she infused like a lot of like just Nigerian like mythology and storytelling and folklore into the stories that she was crafting. It goes without saying that this is a book that's like excellently written. Like it was akwaeke emezi, you know what I mean? And akwaeke emezi is one of the best writers currently, like just period. So this book was just akwaeke emezi, but osunde was just like giving our own spin-off things. It was just such a fresh read. It was just fresh, exciting. I couldn't put the book down. Like once it gets going, it gets going. We got such golden moments of just happiness and joy and just existing, just queer people existing and loving and enjoying their life. It was just such a lovely collection of stories to read, and I wish there was like another book for me to read. Like I feel like osunde now might be an autobi author. Like I think she's on that level. The next book I have to talk about is a very, very recent read, and that is Nightcrawling by Leila Mottley. And I talked about, when did I talk about this book? I talked about this book in my book haul maybe, and I said that I was going to be meeting the author and I was really excited to read that book. And yep, this is one of the best books of 2022 without a doubt. Like I don't see this book leaving like my top 10 list at the end of the year. So in this book we are following Kiara, and Kiara is about to face poverty. She can't pay the rent. Her brother really isn't doing anything to help the house. Her parents are no longer in the picture. She's just facing like really severe money troubles, and she's about to turn 18. She's not yet 18, and she finds herself in the sex industry and sex work. So this book is inspired by a true story that happened in like the mid 2010s in Oakland, where there was a black girl in sex work and she was basically taken advantage of by the local police force there in that area, and Leila Mottley wanted to write this story in relation to that. So this book was just so good. It was so good. So this book is about a lot of things. Obviously we're talking about sex work, we're talking about police brutality, exploitation, we're talking about an unjust justice system, we're talking about home insecurity, just systematic issues. But at the core of this book is the adultification of black and brown girls. And you guys know me, I love books that talk about black girlhood, black womanhood. What I really liked about this book is that it was so seamlessly done, and like how the main protagonist kind of falls into the sex work industry. It isn't like this kind of big dramatic thing that happens. Like for her, the character, it was kind of like the next logical step. I need money, and this is a way for me to get money. And for me personally, who has been through that adultification process, as like a lot of just black and brown girls have been through the adultification process. Kiara, the main character, was just so relatable, and you understood like her mindset, even though she's making bad decisions. You could understand them, and that's not to say if you're not a black or brown girl reading this book you're not going to be able to understand the main character, but it's just to say that Leila Mottley did such a good job with making this protagonist relatable, and you're able to root for her and you're able to sympathize with her, and it was just phenomenal, and it was very lyrical as well. Leila Mottley, if you don't know, she was the youth poet laureate for Oakland in like 2018, I believe. So this book has a very lyrical quality to it, and you're not just reading about this bleak account of this girl who finds herself doing prostitution. I think just the honesty that Leila Mottley brought to this character, you could tell, like, and while I was interviewing her, you could tell that she understood the mindset of her character so much and what she wanted to say with each and every character. The unsung theme of this book is about home insecurity and about having a home and a place to call your own, and the way that when you don't have that or when that's threatened, it just instills so much instability and so much fear in like your life that you can't operate clearly when that threat is like looming over you. As I always say, if it's black humanity at the heart of that pain, at the heart of that black trauma, then you can do it, you know what I mean? Then that's how you make a compelling story that isn't just about pain and trauma and using black characters as a prop to just demonstrate all this pain and trauma that we've been through. But when the black characters have humanity, have this life, and they're just fully fleshed out people in the story, that's how you do it. So the next book I have to talk about today is Lizzie Damiola Blackburn's debut novel, Yinka, Where Is Your Husband? And this came out earlier this year, and this book has been called like romance, romantic comedy, and all those sorts of things with guys. Like, I really wish like it wasn't marketed like that, because while there is romance in this book, while there is like romantic comedy moments in this book, this is a straight up coming of age novel for like a person in their late 20s. It's like if you're in your mid 20s, late 20s, early 30s, like this is the book, like coming of age novel for you. So this book is essentially about Yinka and her mother, her aunties, just the people around her, basically asking, where is your husband? Where is your boyfriend? Like, what is going on with your love life? Which is like relatable if you are from like, you know, an African background, like, you know, I mean, that's kind of common. Throughout the course of the novel, we are following Yinka, who's trying to find a date for her cousin Rachel's wedding, but, you know, throughout that kind of task, she finds herself, she's exploring herself and what she truly wants to be doing with her life, away from any other stresses or the expectations of her family and friends. And while this sounds like that's a pretty like straightforward book, like I just absolutely loved how this book was so charming and lovable. Like Yinka is such a lovable protagonist, so very relatable, not just about like her love life, but also just how she interacts with her heritage, with her background, and some of her struggles with being like British Nigerian and not always following like the Nigerian way of doing things, but also really loving her culture and her background as well. And it was just a really lovely debut novel. And sometimes a book just has to be lovely and comforting and relatable and just charming. I really wasn't expecting to like this book as much as I did, probably because like I thought it was going to be like just very romantic comedy, but the coming of age stories, like black coming of age stories are like I just love them so much, because you get so much depth and nuance and just emotion from these stories, because they're tackling so many complex things at the time. And I do want to point out as well that female friendships and just female relationships were dealt with like really well in this book as well. Not always the case, seriously, not always the case. Overall, this book, when you got to the last page, you're like, this was a really great debut novel, and I really hope that Lizzie and Blackburn like has another book coming out soon, because I'd really love to follow just her author journey like in the future. But essentially, like Lizzie Damiola Blackburn can write good characters, good story, good themes and just explore them very well. And that is all you need in a book. That is all I ask for in a book. And of course, the romantic drama was very lovely to read as well, very fun. And then the last book of this video, but certainly not the least, because I would say this book is probably my favorite read of 2022, and it was my first read of 2022. How lucky am I? And the book I'm talking about is Dear Senthuran by Akwaeke, emezi, and this is a memoir, a Black spirit memoir, which is basically Akwaeke, emezi talking about their selfhood, about their identity, their journey. I did a whole why everyone should read Dear Senthuran video earlier on this year, but this book was just phenomenal. Like, I don't know what else. I don't really, when you read a book so good, it really does leave you speechless. Like, Akwaeke, emezi calls himself like a god. I am a god amongst humans and mortals, and I found that so fascinating. Their identity, the way they explore their selfhood, is so interesting and intriguing because it isn't confined into any types of binaries or restrictions or labels even. I was thinking at the end of this book, am I a god? Can I declare myself a god? Like, how do I get to that journey? And why would you want to be labeled as that? Why would you want to self-identify as that? And Akwaeke, emezi's kind of journey and selfhood is a very intense thing, and we go through a lot of extremes in this book. Like, we see Akwaeke, emezi at the lowest suicidal, depressive place, and we also see them and this like elative, happy place. They also explore their journey as a writer and about being a Nigerian writer in the Western white world and what that means for themselves and the way that other people see their stories. We also get a lot of like intense flashes of their romantic life, of their family life, of their friendships. Everything in this book just feels so intense and so just beating, like heart beating alive, and it was just such a lovely book to read at the start of this year when you really do need that fire, that passion to kind of be like, this is a new year, this is a new start. And I finally got to this book. It actually came out in 2021, so I'm behind the curve when it comes to this, but this book is almost definitely still going to be like one of my favorite reads of 2022. Like, it's going to be really hard to beat this book because it's just had such a profound impact on me, like personally. You know, I mean, outside the reading experience, like this book has just been really helpful and really inspiring. So it's going to be really hard for any book to knock it off its pedestal, essentially. But Dear Senthuran by Akwaeke, emezi, please read it if you have not. It was amazing. That's it, guys. Those are my favorite books of 2022 so far. I'm very excited to see like if any of these books like kind of swap out, or if they're still all my favorite books when it comes to my grand top 10 books in 2022 video. But yeah, that's it, guys. Please remember to comment down below what your favorite books of 2022 have been so far. Please remember to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel. But I'll see you guys soon in another video soon. Bye.